Hey guys, Mr. Jalapeno here with another little drywall DIY. So on today's project, I'm going to be showing you how I repair this drywall crack above the entryway there in the corner. This house is 2 years old, and this is a very common repair I do in these types of homes, especially on newer homes. What I've been told is that it's not necessarily foundation issues here because this house is so new. It's more of like settling issues, new ground, the house is kind of settling in. At least that's what I've been told. But anyways, first thing you want to do, plastic. That way you don't make a mess. And then what I'm doing there with my stud finder is I'm trying to find some studs or some type of backing behind the drywall. Luckily, there were some studs behind the drywall there where I could put one screw below, like about an inch below the crack, and then another screw above the crack a little bit. Look, once I put the screws in, there's a little bit of movement. This is just going to tighten up that drywall up against that stud, and there's going to be less movement. I spaced out the screws about 4 inches away from each other, and then at the end of the crack right there, I just kind of drilled a little hole. They've told me before where that's kind of going to help the crack not keep going. Supposedly, I don't know how much truth there is in that, but I still do it anyways. So my main goal is for this crack not to come back. Unfortunately, if there's any foundation issues or more settling issues, it's, there's only so much I can do cosmetic wise. And as you can see right there, I'm using my utility blade to cut a little valley where that crack was. This is going to help me pre-fill and get as much hot mud as I can into that crack. Look, I'm using this Easy Sand 5 hot mud. This stuff I use because I can do multiple coats, and I'm just gonna mix a little batch right now. That way, like I said, I'm just gonna fill in that little valley I did with my utility blade. And remember, I'm doing a cosmetic repair, not a structural repair, but I do try to take as many steps as I can to avoid this crack from coming back. I've had a high success rate of these cracks not coming back just because of the steps that I take, right? I put screws, I make sure everything's nice and tight, I do the little valley, and then also I'm putting some mesh tape. I always kind of relate mesh tape as like rebar for concrete, but this is rebar for hot mud, you could say. And since I did put that mesh tape, I need to hide the mesh tape, that way it's not visible. So that's why I'm using my 12-inch, that way, because if I just put a little bit of mud in that little area, it's going to look bumpy and then you're going to be able to see the patch. So that's kind of the big reason why I'm going big with my 12-inch. That way it's going to be nice and smooth, and that way it's not going to look bumpy and nobody's going to ever know there was a patch there. Now I'm just getting this patch ready for texture. If you don't have texture, you're pretty much done. Just let it dry, sand it down once it's dry, and prime and paint it, and you should be good. But since this did have texture, I wiped down the edge. That way it's not visible when I shoot the texture. And then I also primed it. So the reason why I primed it is because they're using semi-gloss on this wall, and the texture reacts kind of weird with some semi-gloss paint. So that's kind of why I just primed the patch first before I textured it. And then I waited about 5 to 10 minutes before I knocked it down, depending on humidity of the day, right? Honestly, the easiest way to repair this is to just caulk and paint, but it's going to crack out by next week. So this is the best method to where it's going to last way longer. And that's pretty much it. We're going to come back to paint it next week. Jalapeno Solutions. Boom.